Okay, and you
Yes,
were saying?
it was a track that I had done in a previous original band, which was more rock oriented. And I just was looking back over some things that I'd done previously for inspiration. I thought, yeah, this is worth, dusting off and reworking and revising some of the vocals and getting Yael to sing it and making it blend more with the rest of the album in terms of instruments and so on. So that was a good project to revisit, and I think it paid off because there are some people who really like that track, more than some of the others. So I think it's got a kind of classic kind of prog rock or more rock beat to start with. It's and yeah, I think it works. It works.
All right. And you mentioned Hope earlier as one of the tracks that people are
Yeah.
enjoying. And at the beginning, it almost sounds like a Steely Dan song, which is great. I love Steely Dan.
Yeah, I love Steely Dan as well. Yes,
But go
I
ahead
love
and
them all.
talk a little bit about that one.
It's the lyric again was coming out of bad times, the lockdowns and a lot of bad stuff happening. However bad things get, there is always hope. There is something to hang on to. Even people in most desperate situations. Living in bombed out houses in the Ukraine or something like that. They still cling on to something that one day they get their lives back, and that's just one aspect of it. I wasn't thinking about that specifically, but or even people who've lost people during COVID and all that. That somehow they will come out of it. Everybody. If you give up on hope, then you give up on life. I think even in the most desperate situations, people will always hope for something just to keep them going. So I wanted that song, and I didn't want it to be depressing, and I wanted it to be uplifting at the end, and it just build up to that ending. And I always want to do this kind of anthemic built up ending. And I think again with Yael's vocals and her direction and her ideas, that again really worked well with that song.
All right. Be careful because the sandworm approaches. Definitely, that is a excellent song. I'm a Dune fan.
Yeah, me too. Yes,
Live
I
outside.
read all the books. Yeah,
Live
before
outside. Live
before
outside.
the movies. I read all the June but a long time ago, and
The
and I just want.
author's actually from Tacoma, Washington,
Oh,
and
right.
they built a. They didn't build. They renovated this island, so to speak, in the sound, and they call it Dune Island.
Oh,
'Cause they live not far from there, and they've even got sort of this thing that looks like a worm coming out of it's really cool.
fantastic.
Yeah, if you ever get over here, or you can look at it online.
Yeah, sure.
But
Yeah.
it's called Dune Island, and
Yeah.
it's here in Tacoma. But anyway, but no, yeah, definitely a big fan of the movies and the books as
Yeah.
well. But go ahead and
Okay. Well, obviously that was kind of part of it that they had the thumper in the sand, and that's how it kind of starts off with this sort of thumping
yeah,
beat, and then again it was sand and sort of oriental sounding kind of music riffs, and that all just kind of tumbled out while I'm sort of jamming around for ideas. And again, the lyric is again interpreted in many ways. It could just be about the June life and environment, but it's also about the abuse of power and could be applied to certain individuals,
mhm.
contemporary individuals who've abused that power, and how some religious aspects, people I refer to I think it's prophets joining in the feast, because that's their roots of power as well. But but it's a false worship. They'll support people who will give them power. I'm not talking about all religions. It's those who seem to have veered away from the path, as it were,
Yeah.
onto the dark side. But so it is about that as well. Again, I like hidden meanings. There's the whole the album cover's got hidden meanings in it as well. And even on the first album, there's little hidden jokes which I might tell one day. But I like that kind of thing. It keeps it interesting. But yeah, it's that kind of blend of the June story, but it's also don't let some individuals have too much power, because with that comes abuse.
What did you think of you probably saw the new movie. What did you think of the music for the new movie?
It fitted very well. I loved it. It was atmospheric. I've probably watched it. I've only watched it twice, but that's one I'll go back to, definitely, and can't wait for the next one.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the first. The movies that I can't remember which year they came out, but the previous ones
I like that one too. A lot of people don't like it, but yeah,
it's just that the technology changes and improves it, but it's still a good story, and I like a good story.
Thing and all that stuff. Yeah, it was. I liked it, but not everyone does. But
no, you have to choose your own path.
yeah. How about Shukran Jazilian?
Oh, right. That's
maybe I said it wrong.
No, I'm just trying to think of Shukran Jazilan. Okay. Shukran is thanks. Shukran Jazilan means thank you very much. It's Arabic, and it's probably the only bit of Arabic I know. I did a trip to Cairo and the pyramids a long time ago, and those sorts of things stayed with me. But again, it was one of the tracks I was working on before the first album, having jammed with the Ossie Sassy, and I wanted to sort of capture that mood that we created, and the music that he plays, not ripping it off, but just using it as a source of energy for creating some musical ideas, and again, just plugging the guitar in and just feeling something in my head or hearing something in my head and trying to recreate it, and just took it from there. So it was always an instrumental, and Yossi liked it, so it was okay. So that as I say, that was from before the first album, and people liked it. I actually played it at one of Jeremy's birthdays. He hired a small hall somewhere, and turned it into kind of a festival type theme with 3 bands, and he put me on last, so I had to use I burnt everything to CD except for the guitar, and had that played through the PA system, and I just stood out the front and just played the guitar parts, and that went down very well. I also, for that session, I played it's a Satriani track, is it With You or Without You or something like that. It's a beautiful instrumental of his, which I love, and I did the Lizzie song as well. But so yeah, that's been with me for probably about 8 years, and glad to get it down as I wanted it.
Speaking of that, you did, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, pull everything together for the Warlords, the epic. 15 minutes of just unbelievable music to close the album. Talk about how that developed and how you finally brought everything to fruition. And are you happy with the finished result?
Yes, I have to say yes. But it has a long history, and it goes back to almost the first sort of prog band I was in, somebody had given me an idea for the lyrics, which I then expanded on, and came up with probably, which is the main song part, which is I think part 3, or yeah, which is the main song, Warlords, and that was a track that or a song that we played live in the band that I was in back then. But I always had an idea to expand it in some way. You know, I mean, it was a thing to, you know, at that time to have longer and longer tracks and break it down into parts 1 to 5 or whatever. And I think I always wanted to do that. Pretentious, but good fun. And so it has an overture, which is what I was trying to think of earlier, which but after, when I started revisiting it back, as I say, before the first album, I'd got this orchestral software suite, which is recordings of notes played by different elements of an orchestra in a proper sound studio and everything else, and you can pull all those sampled sounds into creating your own orchestral piece. So and I enjoyed that, doing the different parts for that, and I created probably a 24-minute version of it, all orchestration with flutes, and trumpets, and timpani, and everything else. So it was completely overblown, and the last 5 minutes, or not even that, 3 minutes, was a kind of rock band doing the sort of the battle element of it. But I was never truly satisfied with the sampled orchestra part of it. I thought, no, I'll go back and start with guitars and keyboards and work it like that. And so I had the idea of the different elements of the song and the themes in it, and I put all those into the overture, and then the next parts all fit that. The first is part 2 is this sort of gosh, I begin to forget the names of the tracks, but it's more sort of rural sound. It sounds like a fairground, and there's sort of there's a mandolin, and there's penny whistles, and all sorts of things going on, and piano and hand clapping, and there's sort of a jolly sort of folky kind of feel to it. But there's an ominous section in the middle of it, and it refers to darker shadows come this way. You know, so there's obviously an invading army sort of not far away, and then it switches to the warlords and their false piety, and forgetting about all the notoriety of the past. So you can imagine that's got a contemporary relevance as well. And then into Battlestorm, which is Jeremy had written. I'd played him that piece of music, and I said, would you like to do some lyric for that? And he came back with the lyrics to Battlestorm, and came up with all these references to kind of Middle Ages type weaponry and armor and things like that, and just fitted perfectly with that particular piece. A recent review, it came out today, said that they wish that bit was longer. Yeah. I'm always a bit wary about doing really, really, really long solos, guitar solos, because everybody got kind of fed up with them. But I could have developed it
too. Yeah,
I could have developed it. I like harmony, and I like melody, and but I don't want to get into lots of widdly solos and things like that, because you lose, I'd lose interest. Well, I wouldn't lose interest, but I'd because I do like Frank Zappa. But there's a lot of that for the sake of it, and I wanted it all to count. I wanted it all to mean something, and to take people along with the story, and then come back into the reprise of Warlords at the end. The aftermath, another battle beneath the sun. People praising their gods of war and what have you, and that sort of rounded it all off. But again, Yael's harmony parts for each of all of the sections just worked perfectly. It was something new to her to be given the opportunity, but she would come back each week to the studio here and say, look, I've got this idea, I'd like to try this, and And some things worked, some things didn't, but in the main they worked, and she had a good ear for it and came up with some fantastic harmonies across the whole album, which really added something. And she's got the range of um, uh, Kate Bush. Definitely, she's got quite a range. She's also little interesting side fact. She's also a contemporary of Amy Winehouse. They went to school together, and when Yael had her own rock band when she started writing for it and gigging with them when she was about 14, and Amy was about a year or two younger, and she had her own band as well, and they played at the same school concerts, and their mums knew each other as well. So it was a big shock to the family when Amy died. So but they did sing together on a couple of songs, so she has that memory, which is wonderful.
Definitely. Well, not to leave this one too soon, but are you working on the next album?
Well, all the time that I was finishing off the second one, I was already jotting down ideas as they just come to me. Some of them are fully formed and I've got the whole piece together, probably just needs vocals or tweaking and what have you. And some are just bits of things which need to be developed further. And so some of them are just titles. So I get an idea for a title and then the music comes in. I mean, it all happens in different ways. Sometimes it's the lyric. I've got a book full of poetry which has never been published, which I kind of go back to and I delve into from time to time and rework that as a song. So I've got plenty of ideas for the third one. I might carry on the tradition of the second one was called the difficult second, and I said in one of the chat rooms, what should I call the third one? And everybody came up with the something third or whatever. And there's a couple of good ideas I might come up with. Yeah, I mean, somebody said to me, "Oh, the difficult second track should be the second track on the album," and that's what I did. Yeah. So the demented third or whatever it is may end up as the third track on the third album. So I like these sorts of little patterns, within patterns.
Yeah,
having fun with it, definitely.
You have to. Yeah, it's a fun field to be in. It's fun to make music. I wish I could. But
it's I can only put it down to having had a lot of experience playing in lots of different bands and different styles. As I say, doing some session work for a friend of mine who was a producer. He got me free as long as he did stuff for me as well. So had a few close calls, but never quite hit the mark. But I had a good career in IT, and now just enjoying the fruits of my labor, I suppose, for as long as it lasts. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything that I haven't covered that you would like to talk about?
I think that's been fairly broad and far ranging. I mean, maybe I should get it down in a book. There's lots of stuff.
Yes.
That I could have talked about,
well,
like
definitely, definitely
the people I've met, that because I haven't been, as I say, a recording artist before, but I've known people who are in the music business, and they've been introduced to various interesting people, and I've learned some interesting things about music through them, and they've helped me a lot. It's all been good advice. But no, I think enough's enough for now, anyway.
Well, thank you, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us.
It's been a pleasure.
She even played a little bit. Yeah, my wife said, you have all these people on and you never ask them to play anything. They've got all these instruments in the back of them. If you want to, that's up to you. Would you want to play something, or you played a little bit? It was great. It's completely up to you. I just she caught that, and I was like, yeah, couple of people I've talked to lately have had instruments in the background, and I don't even mention it. It's like, come on.
Okay, well, this is I've got this tuned to a very odd tuning. For the benefit of those who would like to know, it's is I call it Dad, which is B-A-D-B-A-D. Does that sound okay to you? I mean, is it
Yeah.
coming across? Yeah. And I came across it listening to I think it was Mountain Climbing. Do you remember Mountain?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I got a cousin in Toronto, and he sent me via his mum, my aunt, who came to London, and she brought this album, Mountain. I hadn't heard of them, but I just loved the album, and I just heard this, and I thought, well, that sounds good, you know. But what's happening? I don't know if you know. I think it's called "To My Friend" by Leslie West, and it's been decades since I've played it, but I've been using that tuning for another track that I'm working on. So I'll play bits of it that I can remember anyway.
Thank you.
That's just a
Wow.
excerpt. I was
No,
a bit
no.
nervous,
Very,
and my fingers were everywhere, but that's a little bit for you.
it sounds like Page too, Jimmy Page. Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'd suggest listening to the original. It's much better.
No, no, I think you did a great job. Spur of the moment. I mean, thank you.
It's all right.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you again, Susie, really, for everything. Thanks for taking the time out to,
Yes, it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed chatting it, and
thank you.
that's yeah.
Was,
I hope you know, people. All I'm really interested in, you know, as I say, it's not for commercial success or anything like that. But if people, you know, have a listen, you know, you might not like it, of course, but you know, it's some new music, and you know, we do keep going back to a lot of the old stuff, but that's fine. But you know, listen to some new stuff as well, and there's a lot of, not just me, but there's lots of independent musicians out there. Really, they're struggling. I'm lucky. I'm living off my pension now. But there's others who are, you know, trying to make a living, and they're not getting the gigs, and they're not getting the, you know, the album downloads or sales. That only happens really for the really big players. But have a listen to the album. It's on Bandcamp. It doesn't cost you anything to listen. And if you like it, yeah, grab a copy.
Yeah,
I've got
please
CDs.
do.
I've got boxes of CDs here, just taking up floor space. I'm fed up with dusting them, so let me get rid of a few.
Please, yeah, please give it a chance. It's very good music. She did a
Yeah,
great job. Well, she and the band did a fantastic job. But
thank you.
thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. And I'll invite you back for the next one if you're interested.
Yeah,
And thanks, Anne, for bringing us all together.
yes.
And
And Claire's fantastic. She's doing a great job for me.
she is wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off, but stay there and we'll talk. But
Sure.
thanks
Okay.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.